Let's talk about Superman and the Authority. So the other day, I put up a poll asking you guys what you would prefer to have me talk about, and it seems like a lot of you wanted to see me talk about Superman and the Authority. And as I make these separate videos, I'm just gonna go down the list because it seems the popularity goes from the top to the bottom. Now, the reason why I have Superman and the Authority in one video, in one discussion, it's because I believe these characters are going to heavily connect with one another. And then, of course, as the Authority connects to Superman, the Authority will then connect with all other DC characters, but I do believe that the Authority are being set up first to have a story with the Man of Steel. I have a very wild theory on what could be going on here, and it could potentially amount to nothing. I think it would be really interesting if James Gunn went this route. I will get into that theory as the video goes on. But first, let's start with the things that we absolutely know. Let's look at Superman to start. As we know for the Superman film, superheroes in this new DCU are around. The world has superheroes. James Gunn has described bits of this film that Superman is going to be working at the Daily Planet again. He is going to be balancing his human work life with his alien superhero caped wearing life as Superman. And he's going to be around 25 years old, so my age. Well, in fact, I'm actually 1 year older than him. When I thought of young Superman, I was thinking of anywhere from the age of 28 to 30, but 25 fits the bill as well. Now, who's involved in this film? Who are the villains? Are we gonna see Lex Luthor? How much of this movie is going to be him as Clark and him as Superman? We don't really have those details. We'll have to wait for that stuff. Now, as for the Authority, let's do a quick look at their background and their history before we jump into it. They were originally created in 1999, and I do believe they come from a different Earth in DC's multiverse. They come from like Earth 50 or something like that. They basically come from an Earth where they do not listen or pay attention to human politics. They choose and make decisions based off of their own moralities and how they simply think things should get done. They are heroes, if not a little bit more pertain to an anti-hero. They do things a little more aggressively and with a little less care than a hero would. They can be very violent, they can be very dangerous, but they can also be caring as well. If you know a little bit about the Authority, if you're huge fans of the Authority, a huge amount of us at least know two characters from that group, and usually they tend to be the most popular because everyone loves them: Apollo and Midnighter. But the original Authority group looks like this: Apollo, the Doctor, Engineer, Jack Hawksmoor, Midnighter, Jenny Sparks, and Swift. But in today's version of the team, there are three different characters. Enchantress has taken over for the Doctor, Steel has taken over for the Engineer, and Light Ray has taken over for Jenny Sparks and Swift. What version of the Authority are they going to use in the DCU? I don't know. They could find a way to balance both. They could potentially just do the new team. They could just do the old team. I could see James Gunn and the DCU using the most obscure possible characters, considering James Gunn knows how to deal with very obscure characters. Maybe they start with the old team, and if the DCU is successful, as the years go on, they get replaced with the new team. There's a lot of variables here. Although, what's very interesting about the Authority today in the Rebirth storyline, the Authority is actually a team created and founded by Superman. So you can already start to see a little bit of a connection between Superman and the Authority. Now, one idea that could potentially be had here is that back in 2012, there was a comic book adaptation in animation for a Superman movie called Superman versus the Elite. And long story short, if you haven't seen that film, in the movie, it is about Superman having to fight these delinquent teenagers from England who believe that the way that superheroes deal with supervillain threats should be dealt with a little more aggressively and in their way rather than abiding by the government or abiding by how older age superheroes deal with them today. So Superman basically has to fight the elite and teach these kids a lesson. There is an idea that maybe the same story could be getting told here, just instead of the elite, we're going to deal with the Authority, which I think if that were the case, it's a smarter move already, because I think the Authority is a much more interesting group in all honesty compared to the elite, and I think there is more character growth with the Authority. You can use those characters in the future of DC. I don't believe they will go with this story that Superman has created the Authority, and the reason why that is a story currently right now is because I think in the comic books what happened was Superman was having a power issue. He either lost his powers or was for some reason losing his powers, so he had to create a team in the Authority who could basically go out and act like one big proxy for Superman. A story in which Superman is losing his powers or has lost his powers is way too early in a DCU. He's 25 years old. They're not going to do something like that. Although the Authority film could be setting up a fight of Superman versus the Authority, in which what I think would happen is after Superman deals with the Authority, this is going to cause Superman to potentially have to create his own superhero group of his own that can combat anti-hero groups and straight up super villains and supervillain groups as well. My only thing is I kind of feel like Superman could wipe the Authority by himself. So what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to play around with the emotion that Superman really does not want to fight these people, and Superman is willing to get his ass beat because he doesn't want to kill them. But we'll have to see what they'll do there. But that's not my theory. That's just an idea going around right now that a lot of people think could be happening, and it makes a lot of sense. But here comes my theory. Now, my theory is potentially odd. I don't know how crazy they would be to do something like this, but I'm gonna go through with it, and then when I'm done, you can obviously leave your comments below to let me know what you think of this. So in 2001, Superman and the Authority, Superman created and formed the Authority to assist him on freeing Warworld from the tyranny of Mongol. Now, I can't fully remember every detail of the Peacemaker show. I can't exactly remember what that mind-altering alien race was doing on the planet. All I remember is that it was a clear threat. I also remember that once the alien took over your mind, it was pretty much game over from there. I was wondering if potentially Mongol could be a villain for the DCU, or at the very least a villain for Superman and the Authority. And here's why. As I was looking up more on Warworld, because I haven't read anything to do with Warworld in a long time, I came across this. This is the explanation of Warworld from Earth 1 back in DC Comics of 1980. Warworld was a mobile weaponized satellite created by a warlike race called the Warzoons. Bigger and sturdier than a dwarf star and equipped with weapons able to obliterate planets easily. It was meant to be their ultimate weapon to carve a path of destruction through the universe. However, Warworld was controlled by a mind-linking system that strained and quickly drained the user's minds, ultimately resulting in death. I always felt like when watching the Peacemaker show, James Gunn was setting up something bigger with that alien presence in season 1. Now, whether or not we see them for season 2 or for the Amanda Waller show, that is uncertain. But what if there is a chance that those aliens are taking a bigger place in the DCU, and they in fact come from Warworld, and what it could potentially be is Mongol is actually sending those alien parasites to Earth to slowly take over Earth so that Mongol could now be in control of Warworld and Earth, one of the most dominating planets in the DC multiverse, of course. Where is Warworld? And this is where it gets more interesting. Warworld is actually set up on top of Pluto. So it's in the Sol system. It's near Earth. And James Gunn also stated that in the Green Lantern show, the Green Lanterns were going to come across something terrifying in space. And that something terrifying was going to be the threat of the DCU. What if the potential terrifying threat that they find is Mongol setting up Warworld over Pluto, which would explain why those mind-altering aliens were on Earth during Peacemaker, and which could also explain what the threat could be for the DCU moving forward. I mean, the first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Those aliens from Peacemaker are definitely monsters, and Mongol himself is like an alien god monster as well, so that could make sense. There could be something there. I do have a feeling for the first chapter of DC, they want a villain to be present over the DC universe who isn't as big or heavy as a Darkseid would be. I don't even think they would want to go Brainiac route because he's another huge one. But I think Mongol could be a perfectly sized villain for the first chapter, Gods and Monsters. I think there's a potential that maybe Superman and the Authority have to stop fighting each other because now they have to fight Mongol. If it's happened in the comic books, there's no way they didn't look at that and bypass it. That's got to be some sort of idea they could potentially have. Martian Manhunter is even related to the 1980 story of Warworld and Mongol, as Superman finds out the existence of Warworld from Martian Manhunter. And a couple of months ago, somebody did tweet out to James Gunn asking him if he has been taking any inspiration at all from the Justice League animated series for his own DCU, and James Gunn did say he was. And we all know that in the Justice League animated series, a big reason why the Justice League came together was because of Martian Manhunter. So maybe Martian Manhunter gives the warning to Superman that there is more than meets the eye. These aliens from Peacemaker Season 1 and this terrifying threat that the Lanterns find out in space, it's all connected. And you know what? In comic books, in movies, in real life, I think it's time we start showing some love to Pluto. Pluto has been jerked around for years. Is it a planet? Isn't it a planet? Mongol wouldn't just make Pluto a planet, he would make it Warworld, which would be a great threat, especially knowing it sits in the Sol system. Overall, yes, I know that theory might be wild. It might not match up perfectly. It might not match up at all. I was just thinking, if there are things you do want to tie in from the DCEU with the DCU, if there's a brand new story that you want to tell with aliens, gods, and monsters, this might be a way to do it. And if in the 1 in a million or a billion chance that I am literally 100% right with this theory, James, I am very sorry. I do not mean to be spoiling your new DCU. So there are some of my thoughts moving into the DCU DCU with Superman and the Authority. But now I want to hear in the comments below how you think that these characters are all going to tie in with one another. What is Superman's role going to be involving the Authority? Are they going to be friend or foe? How big is the Authority going to be in the DCU? Let me know all your thoughts. But that's all I got for you on this one, everyone. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.